All right. Let's make sure everything is good. Are we good? I think we're good. Here we go. I think we're good. A couple people already here. What's up, Bob? What's up, Jack? My guy. Jack is all about the live streams. I love it. Although, Jack, judging by your thumbnail, it looks like you might be a Patriots fan. That might be an issue for me as a Panthers fan, but I'll let it fly for now. What's up, Lonzo Ball? Not the real Lonzo Ball. What's up, Waffles? Kyle, Christopher, Fun Time, cool. Piggy Wiggles, LOL. Jay Caldwell. What's up, guys? No, you're not early. I'm early, I guess, by a minute, but yeah, we're in there. What's up, guys? How you guys doing? I really enjoyed the last one, and it went better. It went better than I thought it would. I thought maybe, we would run out of questions, or maybe a whole lot of people wouldn't show up. But I actually really enjoyed it. So I don't know if I'm planning on doing this every week or not, but I definitely plan on doing this fairly frequently because I did enjoy it. So go ahead, hit me with your questions. I'm ready. Elena says, "What's up, man? I love your videos. Checked you out last week. Been watching ever since. Appreciate it. Thank you." What's up, Tommy? Christopher already said, "Hey." What's up, Ben? Ben says, "Who do you think the Lakers are going to get this summer?" I definitely think it's going to be Bron. Beyond that, it is probably going to be Paul George, although the Rockets are kind of starting to sneak in there a little bit more than I thought they would for PG. I mean, PG's been talking about going to LA for so long, not talking out loud, but everybody kind of seems like he's been talking about going to LA for so long that I do think it's going to be Bron and him. And then if they want to make a trade, maybe they can. The one thing that is kind of holding me back from 100% saying that Bron's going to LA is the fact that Luke Walton's the coach. And not that he's a bad coach, just he's very young. It's kind of weird that Bron and Luke played at not at the same time necessarily, but not very long after, Bron became the guy in the league. Luke Walton, was in the league as well. So I think that's a little bit of a weird dynamic. And originally the Lonzo Ball, LeVar Ball stuff scared me off a little bit too, but I think that's calmed down. So I do think Bron is going to go to LA, and I would say PG as well. Trade-wise, I'm not really sure beyond that. Kyle says, "What are your thoughts on the one and done rule?" I hate it. I think it's stupid. I think college sports in general, as much as I enjoy watching them, everything outside of the actual game product is pretty screwed up. I think if you go to school, you should have to stay for 2 years, but I don't think you should have to go to school. I don't think that there's any benefit to Ben Simmons going to LSU for 12 credit hours for one semester and then not going the whole second semester to class. If that's where we're at with players and the value that they see in going to school, they shouldn't have to go. And it's stupid that I guess they don't technically have to go to school, but I think they should be able to go to the league right out of high school. And then if they don't want to necessarily go straight to the NBA, they can go overseas. They can do the G League for a year, which I think is eventually going to become a more viable option. Or if they want to go to school, then they can be 2-year players. But I think there's enough options now that that's a much more viable plan, and the one and done rule is an outdated thing at this point. Maddie says, I did not know you liked the Panthers. Do you like the Hornets? I'm a huge Panthers fan. I don't remember the last time I didn't watch a Panthers game on Sunday. When they lost to the Patriots in, I believe, 2003, Adam Vinatieri hit a game-winning field goal. I was like 8 years old, and I cried. It was awful. And then when they got demolished by the Broncos in the Super Bowl a few years ago, that was not fun either. So, yes, I'm a huge Panthers fan. Hornets, not so much. I'm actually a Nets fan. I explained that a little bit in the last Q&A, but actually a Nets fan, not a Hornets fan. I don't have a problem with the Hornets, but it's not necessarily my team. Nino says, "What's the value of Markelle Fultz if the Sixers are willing to trade him?" I don't think they're going to trade him because this is about as low as his value is going to get. I mean, there's still a little bit of intrigue with how good he could be, because of the injury and everything and former #1 overall pick. But realistically, assuming that he comes back healthy and his mind is right and his jump shot's better, his value is going to increase, right? So whether you trade him at the end of next year or the trade deadline or something, his value is probably not going to be lower than it is right now. In terms of what that value actually is and who they could get in return, it's a tough question to answer, but I would say that they're probably not going to trade him until they actually can showcase him a little bit more on the floor if their plan is to eventually trade him. Juan Carlos says, as the GM of the Raptors, would you blow up your team or try one more year and sign a free agent? I made, I believe, 2 different videos about the Raptors and their situation, and it's a little bit tough because this is the best core and the best couple of teams in Raptors franchise history, and there's a lot of money to be made off that. And I don't mean in a bad way, I just mean there's a lot of revenue to be made with this team, whether they're contending for championships, quote unquote, or not. So for me, I don't have the contracts directly in front of me the way that I did when I made those videos, but I believe that what I would try and do is make my very best effort to try and dump someone's contract, ideally Serge Ibaka and or Norman Powell, try and get some help that way, because if they can get under the luxury tax, which I'm not sure where they're at in terms of the luxury tax right now, I don't have it in front of me, but if they can get under that, then they can spend $8 million on a mid-level exception player. And there's some interesting guys, like we talked about last time, in that $8 million range that you could try and get to help them on their bench. I would try and run it back with Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan again, just because of the way their contracts are structured. It's going to be tough to get equal value on the court. So I would run it back one more year, and if it doesn't work after that, then it's a little bit easier to blow it up next year with the way the contracts are constructed. So that would be what I would do. But eventually, it is probably going to be a blow it up situation. Nino says, how can the Celtics acquire a big and form a dynasty without giving up much of their assets? The Celtics, for me, if you're excluding the current Warriors and how good they are in the league, I think the Celtics probably have the brightest future moving forward and are in the best position to be championship contenders sustainably for the next 5 to 6 years. But they have some decisions to make, and the way that they're made is going to determine how long that window is open. So I'm sure most of you saw that some of the Kyrie Irving stuff came out and said the team's a little bit scared that he might go to New York. And I'm not pretending to be the NBA fan with sources, but what I am saying is that from everything that I've read and heard about Kyrie Irving, whether it be articles or whether it be, David Griffin, the former Cavs GM, came on the Bill Simmons podcast a few times and talked about this. Kyrie's a weird dude. Like, he thinks a little bit differently than a lot of these other guys, and I wouldn't put it past him to leave for New York when his contract's up. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I wouldn't put it past him. So the way that they deal with that situation is going to be really interesting, because they've got the Marcus Smart situation with Terry Rozier, and then they've kind of got, like you said, getting another big, ideally, to help them out. So for me, I would not bring back Marcus Smart just because of the way their contracts are constructed. They've already got 2.5 max contract guys, Gordon Hayward, Al Horford, and then Kyrie's contract is pretty expensive as well. And if they want to keep him, be another max deal. I'd let Marcus Smart walk. I would keep Terry Rozier, trade him later if he plays well, or draft his replacement moving forward. In terms of getting the big, I think it's probably going to be a draft pick this year. If they want to try and either move up or down, whoever their guy is, I think that would be a smart decision. And then moving forward, they just got to juggle these contracts, because Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are going to demand some money when their rookie deals are up, and you just kind of balance all that, because you can't keep all of those guys and all of the max contract guys, right? Like, so they've got to kind of balance that and make sure that they extend this window as long as possible. Let's see. Let me scroll back up. I think I missed some. Kyle says, as a follow-up to the one and done question I just asked, if a top recruit goes to the G League, why would a team take him if they can't call him up? So when I say go to the G League, I mean going to the G League as in replacement of a year of college. So let's say that there's a player that doesn't want to go to school. In the scenario in which the rule is you have to go to school for 2 years, or you don't go to school at all. Under that scenario, let's say there's a player that might not be a guaranteed first-round guy if they declared straight for the draft. Their options would still be to play in the G League and get that exposure, or to go overseas. Like, you can be on a G League roster and not be a two-way player and still just be someone, that is playing in the G League. So I would say that who did that? It wasn't Reggie Bullock. It was someone that went to UNC, I think. Someone remind me. Anyway, they went to the G League for a year and then they entered the draft the following year was the circumstance I was saying. T-Fizzle says, explain how Kyrie is weird. I'm not just saying like the flat earth thing. I'm saying he thinks a little bit differently in terms of, I don't think most players would have asked to leave Cleveland. Apparently, he wanted to leave after they won the championship even. And then obviously when they, didn't win it, he wanted to leave again. And I don't think many players would have done that. And I just think he thinks a little bit differently. I will say the Knicks rumors things coming out, I think is brilliant because if he does come back, right? Like let's say he re-signs with Boston. All Boston fans love him because he decided to come back to their team when they thought for a second that maybe he wouldn't. Whereas if he left, it's like, I told you so. Like I let you guys know in advance. So I think it's brilliant that it's just kind of a soft leak and he's just preparing people that he might leave. But also, the city of Boston would welcome him back with open arms and be very thankful that he decided to choose their team. So I think it's brilliant. Billy Bob Montana says, what do you think is next for the Rockets? Do you think they still have a chance to beat the Warriors? It's kind of related to the video that I did yesterday. It just all depends on Chris Paul and Clint Capella. Because, and also Trevor Ariza is a free agent as well. I think they still have a chance. It would have been a lot easier to beat them this past year, I think. But I do still think that they have a chance. And I'm cool with Chris Paul having a max or a near max deal, but it can't be 5 years. That's not happening. Maybe a max for 3, and then you can still bring back Clint Capella. But I'm curious about the Paul George thing. I haven't really read anything concrete on how exactly that would work. But that definitely interests me. Trevor Ariza, like I said, is a free agent. And Ryan Anderson's a guy they're probably going to look to salary dump. But I would say that obviously getting Paul George would help. But even if they just bring back Chris Paul and Clint Capella and try and, either bring back Trevor Ariza or replace him, I think that group that they just had this year could have done it. So I do still think that they have a chance. I apologize. I'm not going to be able to read your first name because I don't want to insult you and say it incorrectly. But last name Singh. Will Steph Curry's legacy be ruined a lot because he has no finals MVPs? No, and I don't think that we should look any different upon his legacy based off the fact that Durant joined the team. They were really good before Durant got there, and it's not Steph's fault, if you want to put it that way, that KD joined the team. And if KD didn't join the team, he probably would have had at least one finals MVP because they do probably still beat the Cavs. So no, I don't think you should look at it any differently. I mean, he's got 2 league MVPs, 3-time champion. I don't really think there's a whole lot else that could drag him down just because he doesn't have a finals MVP. And he'd probably have a couple more chances to get one, if we're being honest. Blake Thomas said, I really enjoyed your video about players taking pay cuts. Do you 100%? Do you support 100% player loyalty? I'm not really sure what you meant about the second part of the question, but I'll talk about yesterday's video a little bit. So on occasion, when I make a video, I know that there are going to be some people that are going to dislike it just because they disagree with what I'm saying. And so obviously that video yesterday, has a little bit more dislikes than most of my videos normally do, and that's fine. Just like the other video I made about NBA players, do NBA players get paid too much? Those types of videos are meant to encourage discussion, and there were certainly some negative comments, but for the most part, I felt like it promoted some discussion, and the negative comments that were there, they weren't really understanding what I was saying. What I was saying is that as fans, we shouldn't look at these players any differently for wanting to take a pay cut or for not wanting to take one. And that was the first 2 parts of the video were about the fact that fan perception should not be affected, pay cut or not, right? And then the last part was just that it would be really bad for the league if all of a sudden to just compete with the highest level team, everybody has to take pay cuts all of a sudden. In terms of the 100% player loyalty thing, no, again, I don't really know what you mean, but to break it down in my mind from what I think you're saying, I don't think players should be loyal to franchises almost at all because they're not going to return that favor. They're very much a business, and if you're going as a player to not take as much money as you are worth, and if you're not going to re-sign for a max deal or sign a max deal when you're worth it, that $10 million you're giving up is not going to help, feed someone. It's going to the owner. Like, they're going to get more money out because they're not going to have to pay as much luxury tax. That's all it's doing, is it's saving the business money. It's not helping you or I pay our bills because Kevin Durant takes $10 million less. It's doing essentially doing the organization a favor. So in that scenario, no, I would not support, player loyalty 100% because they wouldn't return the favor in my eyes. All you got to do is look at Danny Ainge in Boston, and to a certain extent, Bill Belichick as well with the Patriots. I'm not saying anything bad about Boston sports teams. I'm just saying those are the first two instances that come to my mind about teams that will very quickly, if you're not an asset to them anymore, will trade you or move you or release you for something that is going to be an asset. Jamme says, who is, in your opinion, the most interesting prospect outside of the lottery? Hidden gem potential, ? I have a couple. I've talked a little bit, probably too much, about Dante DiVincenzo. I do like him. I've got two other guys who actually I played against in high school and were high school teammates. And that's not the reason I think they're hidden gems. I just think they're really good college players. Jerome Robinson from Boston College and Devontae Graham from Kansas. Now, I'm not saying they're going to be superstars, but Jerome Robinson's got great size. He's really skilled. He's actually a really, really strong kid, and he's still young as well. Devontae Graham has been in school for a little bit longer, but I think those two guys, even if maybe they're not necessarily first-round guys, those are two guys I would keep an eye on for me personally if I was going to make a list of potential late-round draft steals. Probably Jerome Robinson more so, but Devontae Graham is a guy that can be a really, really solid rotation player moving forward. Let me see. Eugen, maybe? What do you think about rumors of Jaylen Brown being traded for the 5th pick? Shout out from Croatia. Your channel is awesome. Appreciate it. That's I've never had anybody else comment that they're from Croatia. I've had a couple of countries, but never Croatia. Actually, half my viewership, over half, is from outside the state. So I'm planning on trying to do some of these live streams a little bit earlier in the day, my time, to accommodate some more people from overseas. I actually haven't heard a ton about Jaylen Brown specifically being traded for the 5th pick. I have heard Celtics rumors about getting the 5th pick. If it's for a big guy, I would hesitate, even though I know that they do need one. I would hesitate, though, because that's one of their biggest advantages, is the fact that they have so many big, young wings that they need to be able to guard, really good postseason teams. So I would be very hesitant to get rid of Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown or Gordon Hayward, for that matter. Having that many wings is certainly a good thing and has very much been a part of the plan this whole time in Boston. So I've heard those rumors. I wouldn't do it if it involves any of the wings. Matthew Mahoney says, thoughts on Casey hiring? I actually saw Funky tweeted earlier today. He basically said, Dwayne Casey might not be the best coach, but he's better than a lot of others out there. And I thought that was perfect. The way that the Pistons are right now, you can't expect, a savior of a coach. It's not necessarily a great job, but I think Dwayne Casey can definitely turn them into a playoff team, which if you're Detroit at this point, you'll probably take. He's not going to be great in the postseason playoff adjustment-wise, as in my opinion, as we saw against the Cavs, but I do think he can lift that team up and try and get them in that 40 to 45 win range, which in the East could be enough to make the playoffs. Piggy Wiggle says, what do you think about Svi from Kansas? I know who you're talking about. I will not be able to pronounce his name, but I do know who you're talking about. The weird thing with him is I feel like he's been, that fringe guy, that hidden gem guy for like 3 years, because he was at Kansas at a pretty young age. I just don't know that he's going to be able to guard at the NBA level. He's really, really got to shoot the ball out of his mind to be an NBA rotation guy, because he's going to be a pretty big liability defensively. I do like him as a player and as a shooter, but I have big question marks defensively. Mounta says, I'm biased, but maybe true opinion. Jokic is better than Mitchell. I'm assuming Donovan Mitchell. Embiid, Simmons, says Jokic is better than Mitchell, Embiid, Simmons. I'm going to skip that one. I think you're saying Jokic is better than those guys. That's your opinion. I would say not so much because he doesn't provide as much defensively. Josh says Donovan Mitchell equals next Kobe, question mark. Shout out from London. You're the best NBA channel on YouTube. I appreciate that. There's a lot of really talented people on this platform. So for you to say that does mean a lot. And I appreciate the love from London because I'm pretty sure it's pretty late your time. I don't know. I mean, it's only been a year, right? Donovan Mitchell, I've watched a lot of ACC basketball when he played at Louisville because I'm an NC State fan. And he impressed me with his athleticism, and he impressed me even more so with the Jazz, with his skill level. Next, Kobe is kind of a big prediction after 90 games in the NBA, but I do like his future. Gabi says, what is a bold prediction you have for this off season? It's not really bold, but just one that I've been thinking about is I don't think the Spurs have a chance to get Bron. I could be completely wrong, and maybe somehow they'll be able to get him. I don't think it's going to happen, and I still think Luka Doncic is going to go first overall to somebody, or someone's going to trade up to get him. But those would be my two. That Bron has no chance of going to the Spurs, and that Luka Doncic is either going to go first, or whoever gets him is going to get the best player in the draft. Matthew says, Dante DiVincenzo or Grayson Allen, who would you pick first? I would pick DiVincenzo because I think he's a little bit better of an athlete. Grayson obviously had a great career at Duke, and I think in the right situation, maybe even similar to Quinn Cook, fellow Dookie, he could have a pretty good career in the NBA, but for me personally, I would pick DiVincenzo because he's a little bit better of an athlete. Ben says, if Doncic falls past 2, they're a fool. Thank you. Like, I keep getting notifications every day that teams are trying to trade into the top 5 to pick him, and I don't understand how he gets past 2 or even 1 in my eyes. I don't get it. I don't understand what people aren't seeing in him, what else they need to see, but I think it's a huge mistake if he does fall even below 2. Mackenzie says, Michael Porter top 5, thoughts on his injuries. It's just tough because, I mean, how many times in the last 5 years have we seen a big-time high school player, top 10 in his class, hoop mixtape, all his life, they're all over him, they love him, and then they don't do anything in the league? Michael Porter Jr. played all of, 45 minutes of college basketball? So it's very, very difficult to project where he's going to be. In addition to that, obviously, it's very serious injuries that he's dealing with. I wouldn't touch him. I think he's very talented, and if maybe he fell to me at like 8 or 9 or 10, I would consider it. But he's not a top 5 guy for me just because it's so difficult to project where he's going to be. I'm sure he's very talented, but we've seen that story plenty of times. Jan May says, kind of reverse on my last question. Who do you think is the most overrated lottery prospect right now? I would say overrated in terms of the impact that people think he's going to have. We talked a little bit about him last time, and you're probably going to crush me for it, but I'm not a big Mo Bamba guy. And I saw a Twitter video, it was yesterday, the day before, and I think maybe he tweeted or someone else did, of him like draining threes, right? He's rolling and he's catching. And it's like a 50% game speed jump shot, and he made like 5 in a row. Like, that does not impress me whatsoever. There are plenty of guys in the league that if you give them 4 seconds to sit there and shoot off a roll that you walked into, can make 5 threes in a row. So if that's what we're counting on, that he's going to be a stretch 5, I'm not impressed. I think he's not quick enough to move his feet in ball screens. He's too skinny, and he's going to be, best case scenario defensively, Rudy Gobert, who's a liability in the playoffs, and offensively, I'm not convinced. So I would say Mo Bamba. MH says, who should the Knicks draft, McHale, Miles, or Knox, in your opinion? It depends, obviously, on how things go and where things fall. If you're giving me the choice of those 3, I would say Mikal Bridges. Of the 2 Bridges, he's my favorite. And of those 3 guys, I like him the best. I will say I'm higher on Kevin Knox than I feel like most people are. But I would take Mikal Bridges in that situation because of how good he is as a shooter, how good he can be defensively, and then I think he has a lot of room to grow as an offensive threat, not necessarily as an all-star caliber guy offensively, but as a guy that can be really effective and maybe be a 15 to 18 point per game scorer, in addition to being a really good defender and shooting off the ball. Elena says, which top 10 player in these mock drafts are most likely to be a bust? I mean, we kind of talked about a few, Michael Porter, Mo Bamba. And to me, I would say Marvin Bagley too, and we talked about him a little bit last time. He's a very good athlete, and I think that's about where the strengths stop. I don't think he's a very good shooter. I don't think he has a ton of skills, and I think he's a 5-man that can run up and down the floor and protect the rim, which is very valuable. But defensively, he was so bad at man-to-man defense. They played zone most of the year because he couldn't guard a ball screen. So I would say one of those three, Mo Bamba, Michael Porter, or Marvin Bagley. Darren, I apologize. I've had people tell me that before, that I speak a little bit too quickly, especially for people that don't speak English as a first language. I'll do my best to slow down, but this is the way that I've always talked, so it's going to be a difficult habit to break. You have no idea how many times I've been recording audio for a video and then stopped and made myself repeat the line slowed down because in my mind I'm speeding it up. I apologize. I'll do my best. Drew says, if LeBron goes to LA, would you trade Lonzo, Luol Deng for DeAndre Jordan? Maybe throw in a couple second-round draft picks to sweeten the deal. I don't think anybody's taking Luol Deng. I mean, no offense to him, but that deal is just awful. And I probably wouldn't trade Lonzo. I'm not like the biggest Lonzo guy, but I do see the value in him. So I would say probably not. Gabi says, where do you think Aaron Gordon will go? It's really tough with restricted free agents because you never really know what can happen as well as what the original team is willing to match. I think Aaron Gordon is a very good player, and I just don't know how much the Magic value him. I mean, there's not a ton of room out there for him to get a big offer, but the Nets would have between 16 and 18 million a year to offer him. If that's too rich for the Magic, I could see him going there. Potentially the Bulls, but I think they're in it for the long haul a bit more. I'm saying the Nets because there's really no value in them continuing to be bad for the most part because they still do owe some of their draft picks moving forward. Jabari Johnson says, do you think Ben Simmons is a tall Rondo like I do? There was a lot of talk about Ben Simmons when the Sixers were still in the playoffs, and I heard a lot of interesting things about his game and about how he needs to evolve moving forward. And we talked a little bit last time about how Giannis and him, if they ever learn to shoot the ball consistently from three, we should all just quit. I think he does remind me a lot of Rondo, but I think the league has evolved a little bit in how to guard those guys because back when Rondo was at his peak, guys were like 4 feet away from him. Like if he was on the three-point line, they had a foot in the paint. Didn't matter where he was. And if he has the ball in his hands, what you're doing is you're just allowing him to see everything. You're allowing him to use his passing ability. So what teams ended up doing for Ben Simmons is they started really guarding him and playing up on him, and that made it a little bit more difficult because I don't think his handle is as strong as it should be right now to be a lead ball handler. It's good, but it's not necessarily strong against pressure. So I kind of agree with you, but I also think that he's going to need to evolve a little bit more than Rondo did, at least in his time with Boston, because teams are going to play him a little bit differently. MH says, do you think, I'm going to try and, I apologize if I'm reading some people's questions over and over, like the same people. I'm trying to get as many people in as I can. MH says, do you think Kemba Walker is going to be traded? I do. And if for some reason Bron stays, I think the Cavs are in play. And I talked about Kemba a little bit. It just depends on a team that knows they're going to be able to bring him back and is willing to pay him next summer, not this coming summer, but the following. Because I think he's getting paid 13 this coming year, and then he's a free agent, and he's going to be a pretty expensive guy. But I think he's a really good player, and I do think the Hornets are going to try and move him. Where, I would say, just kind of depends on how the dominoes fall this summer. Krishan says, which team do you think will most likely become the next quote-unquote super team, and which players? I think if you're considering a super team, meaning they add guys via free agency or trades. I've already talked about it. I would say LA with PG and Bron. But I would also say that I think the term super team is something that we're overusing a little bit and isn't as well defined as it should be. For example, if Boston ends up winning the East next year with the group that they have right now, plus whoever they draft, are they a super team, right? I mean, they did sign Gordon Hayward and they did sign Al Horford, but it's not like they're signing one of the top 4-5 players in the league, right? And they traded for Kyrie, but I mean, at least half, if not more, their production is coming from guys that they drafted. So the similar comparison would be, would you consider the Warriors before KD got there a super team? I wouldn't, but would you consider that? So that term, I think, is just being thrown out all the time, just like a team having a big three gets thrown out all the time. And I don't think it's super well defined. But to answer your question, I would say LA with Bron and PG. Jack says LeBron to the New York Knicks. If they get rid of Gallinari, they'd have room. Gallinari, I'm pretty sure plays for the Clippers. Maybe I'm confused about who you're talking about. No, I don't think he's going to go to the Knicks. I don't think it's going to happen. The Knicks are in kind of a weird spot as well because they've got Joakim Noah for like 18, Enes Kanter for like 17, Tim Hardaway Jr. for like 17, and then Kristaps' deal will be coming up soon. So they've either got to get out of some of those guys or they've got to be in it for the super, super long haul. So they're in kind of a tough spot. Henry says, if Suns manage to keep Booker, Jackson, and Ayton, assuming they draft him for 5 years, they will win a championship within 5 years. Agree or disagree? That's pretty tough to project 5 years from now because, I mean, this is 2018. In 2013, you probably didn't think the Warriors would have, 4 All-Stars in their team. A little bit difficult to project that far ahead. I will say I've seen rumors about them trying to get back into the top 10 after they use the first pick to try and get Trae Young. And it would be Trae Young, Devin Booker, Ayton, and TJ Warren, and then obviously Josh Jackson. And apart from Josh Jackson, as much as I love TJ Warren, apart from Josh Jackson, all of those guys are not very good defenders. So they would give up a ton of points. I will say it's an interesting group, and depending on how Ayton specifically evolves defensively, they could have a chance to be really good. But, I mean, you could have said that about the Suns a couple of times in the last 4 years, and the guys that they've drafted, for the most part, haven't really panned out. I mean, if they get Ayton, that'll be, by my count, TJ Warren's a lottery guy, I'm pretty sure. Josh Jackson's a lottery guy. Devin Booker's a lottery guy. Marcus Chris, Dragan Bender, Alex Len, and DeAndre Ayton. That's 6 or 7 lottery guys. And they haven't won more than 35 games in that time span, I don't think. That's an interesting question. Elk says, would you rather have LeBron or Curry when they're 40 years old? Ooh, that is... I would probably say Bron, but I'm thinking about this a lot longer than I thought that I would. Obviously, the comparison is Bron is getting better at not relying on athleticism so much, right? Like, he's definitely improved his skill a lot. But Steph's ability to shoot the ball is always going to be there. But I still would take Bron just because he's Bron. But it's a really interesting question. Dylan says, "What do you think? Who do you think is the worst management in the NBA?" Shout out from Serbia, big fan. Appreciate it. Serbia in the house. Appreciate that. I don't know. That's tough. Management is separate from, like, the organization as a whole. And I don't want to, piss anybody off by saying their organization's awful. I will say traditionally I have made a few jokes and videos about the Kings organization not being the greatest. Management-wise, though, yeah, I mean, if you want to go back a couple of years, it's definitely the Nets with Billy King, but I would say still probably the Kings, not necessarily because of the people that are in place. It's just there doesn't seem to be a ton of cohesion about people knowing whose job is whose and who's really in charge. So I would say the Kings. Who do you think is the team with the worst future, Memphis or Charlotte? I think it's Charlotte. And I know that that's bad to say about a team that's been in the lottery as many times as they have recently. But Memphis at least has some proven guys that if they're healthy next year, they should be okay, you know, for maybe the next like 2 years before those guys get too old. But Charlotte's just locked into a ton of guys that they're paying between $15 and $18 million that aren't real difference makers. So I would say Charlotte. Any chance Bron goes to the Celtics? It would have to be a sign and trade, and that would pretty much guarantee that Kyrie would leave. So I would say probably not. Let me scroll back a little bit. Blake says, could the Jazz take the Cavs to 7 in a 7-game series? This iteration of the Cavs team, if you're talking about these years, this past years, I think the Jazz would probably beat the Cavs in a 7-game series. Personally. Just me. Aragon Frost says, thoughts on most improved player? I'm thinking Oladipo or Capella. I think it's probably going to be Depot, but he's just ran away with it for the most part if you're looking at it from a statistical standpoint. So it's not even close compared to a lot of other years, but I would say Depot. Let me see. Constantine says, who will get the biggest contract in free agency? Who will get the biggest contract in free agency out of these? Eric Gordon, I'm assuming, Derek Favors, Jabari Parker, or sorry, Aaron Gordon. Sorry, Aaron Gordon, Derek Favors, Jabari Parker, Julius Randle. I would say probably Julius Randle, but it's close. Derek Favors, I don't think is really in contention between those three, because I think the other three have more, potential. And I think Derek Favors is going to get a longer deal, pretty much at the same salary he was just earning, which is $12 million. But I would say that those other three guys, you could make the case, could be worth between 16 and 18. And I will say that eventually probably Randle is going to be the guy that would get the biggest deal. I do like Aaron Gordon, but I think that Randle has actually shown a little bit more for the potential that he has. It's just me. Radar says, which NBA team should blow it up this offseason? Any of them that are not in championship contention. That would be my answer. Big targets. I think the Wizards are getting there. I'm going to do an offseason video about them before free agency actually starts. But I think the Wizards are pretty close. Unless they can find a way to make some miracle deal, it's getting to the point where they're paying a ton of money for a team that's, a bottom 4 team in the East playoffs. So a top, between 4 and 8 in the playoffs. So I think the Wizards are there, and I think the Raptors, if this year doesn't go well, probably there as well. Ben says, what are your thoughts on this draft promise trend, such as Hutchinson with the Bulls and Robinson with the Lakers? I think it's BS. Why would teams disclose their draft plans? Shut up in the USA. From a player perspective, I would not trust it one bit. I'm not going to trust a team's word that they're going to draft me somewhere with what is the biggest event in my life to that point, which is being drafted to an NBA team. I'm not just going to say, oh, the Bulls say they're going to get me at 13 if I'm there. All right, cool. I'm not working out for anybody else. That's where I'm at. I'm going to fully declare for the draft. That's a lot of risk to take off somebody's word because there's no contract there. There's nothing preventing the team from saying, oh, DeAndre Ayton fell to 4. Let me trade up and get them. Screw the 13th pick. So personally, I'm staying away from draft promises if I'm a player. Money Max says, you being a Nets fan, would you be happy if they signed Jabari Parker? Depends on the number. Like I said, they probably couldn't offer more than 18 unless they got rid of some guys' contracts, and the contracts they have are going to be pretty tough to get rid of. I would be happy about it as a fan because I think that he definitely has a lot left to give. I just don't know that I'd be willing to spend $18 million a year on him, and I think that's probably what it's going to take because the Bucks already offered him a contract that would have, or reportedly may or may not have offered him a contract reportedly worth 18. So I would imagine they would match 18, and to go above that would be pretty crazy for a guy that, although he averaged 20 a game last year in 50-something games, has torn his ACL a couple of times. So that would definitely worry me. I would be excited depending on the number. Patrick says, can Brook Lopez fit with the Warriors? Brook Lopez was awesome as a net. I know that the teams weren't very good, but I'm pretty sure he's the Nets' all-time leading scorer in franchise history. I think he's a really good player. He's going to have to be an all-offense guy. He's not going to rebound very much for you. He's not going to be a great defender, but he can score whether he starts or he's off the bench. I don't know how the Warriors would get him because I do think that he does still hold some value, and he's not like a minimum contract guy, which is who he would have to be to go to the Warriors. I think he would fit on a good amount of teams as long as you're not counting on him for anything other than scoring. Owen says, how likely do you think the Rocket, let's try that again. How likely do you think it is that the Rockets are going to get LeBron? I don't think that they are. I don't think they're interested, and I don't think that there's a realistic path to do it financially with Chris Paul and Clint Capella already being free agents. Dude Cuz says, what do you think about the Spurs situation, including players, what management should do, and what you think management will do, and the situation with Kawhi? I think they have kind of calmed down the whole let's trade Kawhi thing. I'm not saying they ever considered it, but it seems like it's not going to happen no matter what, which is probably the right choice. I would love to see them maybe potentially trade LaMarcus Aldridge and try and move up in the draft somewhere to get some other young guys, because even if they're very good this coming year, they're not going to beat the Rockets or Warriors in the playoffs, in my opinion. And obviously all the other guys they have outside of Kawhi are pretty old. So to take advantage of Kawhi's couple of prime years that he has, assuming that he comes back healthy from injury, I would hope that they would try and trade up in the draft to try and get someone else to go along with them, especially in the backcourt, to get them some more perimeter playmaking. The whole LeBron thing intrigues me, but I don't think it's actually going to happen. But I think they'll keep Kawhi. If it was me, I would hope that they would try and move up and try and get a young guy, maybe try and get a lottery pick and something else in return for LaMarcus Aldridge. Alvaro says, who do you think would have the best career, Doncic or Ayton? Spanish fan. Big shout out from Spain. Appreciate it. I've already talked about this a little bit. I definitely team Luka for sure. Michael says, is Trae Young getting picked by Cleveland? I don't know. Trae Young is a very, very interesting prospect because whenever I would watch Oklahoma games, he'd take crazy shots, right? And that would concern me. And I would be like, what is this guy's deal? But then maybe 5 or 6 times a game, maybe not that many, maybe 3 or 4 times a game, he would make a play that I didn't see anybody else in college make that year. And he'd do it a couple of times a game, and he would just do something really, really special where he would just anticipate a passing lane in the full court in a way that other college players aren't seeing it. And I think that his game is probably more made for the NBA than it is for college. And obviously we saw how well his college how well he performed in college from a statistical standpoint. He's not going to be a very good defender ever, but I think if he's in the right situation, he can be a very, very good offensive player, assuming he gets stronger, assuming he improves his decision making. As far as the Cavs at 8, that would have to assume, in my opinion, that Bron is gone, because if he's still there, they're probably going to try and get a wing, I would imagine. But I think it could happen. Again, everything with Cleveland just depends on Bron. Dylan says, in your opinion, how much of defense is effort and how much is skill? Huge fan of the channel. Appreciate it, bud. At the NBA level, I think there's definitely a combination of it, right? Like you need to have some athleticism and some skill and some lateral quickness to be able to be a really good defender. But to be a league average defender, I think a lot of it is effort. I will say that I watched I would say 90% of the Cavs playoff minutes this year, and about 15 possessions the entire playoff run, LeBron James was like fully engaged as a defender. He was 100% engaged, sliding his feet all over guys, and he looked like the best defender in the league. And I know that that's a lot to say about a guy that defensively does not give great effort, but when he puts in maximum effort, he still has it, and he looked like he could guard anyone he wanted to when he put his mind to it. Walter says, let's say Cousins leaves and you're the Pelicans. What do you do then with Davis? He's still young and there's time to build more around him, but the potential package they could get would be great. I think if you're the Pelicans and you really, really, really don't think you're going to be able to bring back Boogie with a non-max contract, I think you got to explore sign and trades, because they don't have anything else. Like, they literally have AD, Drew Holiday, Rondo, assuming he's playing well, Solomon Hill, Darius Miller, and Etuan Moore, right? And Solomon Hill looks gross whenever he plays. It looks awful whenever he plays. They need wings. They have to get wings. Like, Drew Holiday is the primary defender on Kevin Durant in a Western Conference semifinal series. That's ridiculous. He's 6'4", he's a very good defender, but you've got to have wings that can guard if you really want to do anything. So if they think Cousins is leaving, they need to try and get sign and trade packages for him. If he does leave, though, I don't necessarily think you just throw AD away, because I think he's actually fairly happy. Now, if you have a bad year, maybe that changes, but I would say right now they'd be fine. They got to try and get a wing. Aiden, I have seen that thrown around a lot, signing and trading Cousins for Otto Porter. I think that's a fairly good move for both teams. I've seen that a lot. Michael says, if Boogie leaves the Pelicans, who do you think he will sign with? I did a free agent Friday on Boogie. Was he the first one? The second one? A while ago, a couple weeks ago. And I think he's going to do one of two things. I think depending on how the market shakes out, he could come back to the Pelicans. And if he doesn't come back to the Pelicans, and depending on how the Lakers situation goes in free agency, I think he could go there. So I think it's one of those two. And I will say, tomorrow's video is going to be Trade Machine Tuesday, in the sense that I'm going to be talking about trades, but it's not going to be like the similar format that you're familiar with, where I'm talking about 3 players, 1 that you guys give me and 2 that I choose. But I'm still going to be talking about trades tomorrow. Victor says, McCollum for Wiggins, ? Andrew Wiggins is weird, dude. Like, there's no reason he shouldn't be a well above average wing. Maybe not an all-star, but there's no reason that he shouldn't be better than he is. And I don't know if it's Tibbs. I don't know if it's him. I don't know if it's Minnesota as a franchise, just unable to really develop players since KG left. I don't know what it is. But there's no reason that he shouldn't be better than he is, to the point where I would say no if I was Portland. I don't want Andrew Wiggins. I really like CJ McCollum. Jake Reed says, what team do you think would be the best fit for Marcus Smart? The weird thing is, like, Marcus Smart's perfect for Boston, right? Like, the city loves him. Everything about Marcus Smart is just, it's pure Boston Celtics. And like I said, the smart thing to do, I think, would be to let him walk. I think the team is probably going to try and bring him back. But I would say the Celtics, and beyond that, I have no idea, because I honestly can't envision in my mind him playing for a different team. Money Max says, why did the Towns trade talk die so quickly? It's a very good question. I mean, I wouldn't even say it was trade talk. Just he's a little bit disgruntled, a little bit upset, which is not an uncommon thing for people that play under Tom Thibodeau. I think it died quickly because it probably was just a leaked, really quick frustration, and then Karl Towns came to his senses a little bit, if you want to use that word, and kind of backed off of it, and it stopped becoming a rumor. Doctor, I didn't even think about that pun, the smart thing to do. And no, nobody really calls me Tucky. I call myself Tuck on occasion, and other people call me Tuck. Most part, it's Tucker. Bulls analyst, how good do you think Lauri Markkanen could get? Is this like a Mike Grzemba burner account or Nick the Bulls fan burner account? I think he's really good, and Donovan Mitchell, I believe, ended up breaking the rookie 3-point record, but I'm pretty sure Lauri Markkanen would have broken it if he didn't. I think he's going to be really good. I don't think you can win a championship with him as like your second or first best player. I think he's a pretty good third guy if he can improve defensively and rebounding wise. Obviously, he's a very, very good shooter and very unique in that ability to shoot as well as he does coming off screens or on kickouts with the kind of size that he has. See, I knew it. Bulls analyst, Nick the Bulls fan, Mike Grzemba, burner account. Is Nick the Bulls fan still a thing? I haven't watched like 2K stuff in a while. I don't know. Does he still make videos? Did you guys see Grzemba's video that he put up yesterday, the day before, where he was playing against the girls college basketball player? That was actually really good. I actually enjoyed that. Let me see. Gabi says, who's your offseason dark horse, parentheses, 2017 Thunder? I've seen that question pop up a couple times, and I just didn't read it because I didn't really know what I was going to say. It's always tough to predict these things, right? It's tough to really pinpoint it. And I think there's a lot of teams that are kind of in that in-between range where if they make a move, they could really bump themselves up. Teams like the Nuggets, teams like the Jazz, Portland potentially could be dark horse candidates, but it's very, very difficult to predict. Russell Westbrook, I'm glad you could make it, by the way. I know it's probably pretty late for you. How good would Clay be if he wasn't on the Warriors, ? In my opinion, he wouldn't be an all-star. Fan from Wales, by the way. I think he would be an all-star. And if you guys have watched a couple of the videos, you probably know that that's one of my dreams, is for Clay to be on a different team, not only because it would make the Warriors worse and thus make the finals more competitive, but also because I just want to see how many points Clay could score. I think it was the second MVP year for Steph Curry, so the year before KD got there was some stat where Steph was shooting, or he was averaging like 1.2 points per possession on highly contested 3-point shots. So what if Steph just came down the floor and shot the ball every time? You'd score like 130 points, assuming that translated across all of those shots. But I would say Clay would still be an all-star, even if he wasn't on the Warriors, and I would like to see it happen. Noah says, switch Clay with Kemba, and Clay doesn't average 15 points per game. I don't know about all that. I think just by sheer volume, being on that Charlotte team, being the best offensive option, I think he would score 20 just by having so many more shot opportunities compared to everybody else on the team. But, I mean, you're entitled to your opinion. I'm just disagreeing. KT says, Oladipo is better than DeRozan. Thoughts? I would agree. I'm not a big DeMar DeRozan guy. I don't care about the fact that he shot 38% from 3 before the All-Star break, because after the All-Star break, he went right back to regular old DeMar DeRozan. I don't think he adds a ton of value to the team. I don't think that he really helps you win. I think he's a very good scorer, and I think defensively he is very much below average. And if you're trying to win games in the playoffs, I don't think DeMar DeRozan helps you do that. Whereas I think that Victor Oladipo's impact on both ends of the floor as a two-way player makes him more valuable. So I would say yes. Deether says, if Golden State Warriors lose next year, is it possible that Clay leaves? It's interesting to me that there was all this talk about Clay potentially taking a pay cut for like a week, and then he had never actually signed a deal. Like, I'm sure he's eligible to be able to sign an extension right now or very soon. And it's interesting to me that all that talk came out and a deal was never actually signed. I will say that, I mean, I think ownership will probably pay him no matter what. But if Klay doesn't take a pay cut, it's going to make it more and more difficult for them to build a team around players that aren't those 4 core guys. Michael says, should the Cavs trade for Lillard to convince LeBron? I've kind of cooled off on the Portland trading either Dame or CJ talk because, as a few people have pointed out to me, Portland is very different as a franchise in terms of loyalty. And according to Portland fans that have commented, and I tend to agree based off some books that I've read about Portland and articles I've read about the team, the fans would probably revolt if either one of those guys left. I do think that if they're going to get rid of someone, it would probably be Dame, because you could probably get more. And also, I've read some stuff about the front office being a little bit more loyal to CJ. I think it'd be a great move if the Cavs were able to do that, because it would take so much pressure off of Bron. But again, that assumes that he's going to stay, and I don't know how likely that is. Ooh, Jan says Klay to the Clippers, please. He has a good relationship with Jerry West. I like that. I like that idea a lot. You're right. I like that idea a lot. All right, let me see if I missed any. Dylan says, do you think that KD has to lead a team to a title to be an all-time great? I've seen plenty of Twitter salt the last couple of days saying that just because KD has 2 rings doesn't mean that he is an NBA champion. I mean, they definitely still count, but I definitely think that it would help him if he could actually end up, I wouldn't even say leading a team to a championship, but leading a less talented team to a championship. And I think the most frustrating part for me isn't necessarily the fact that the Warriors are so good now. It's the fact that the Thunder should have beaten the Warriors the year before he left to go to Golden State. I mean, Klay Thompson had a ridiculous Game 6, and it's probably the only reason that Kevin Durant is a Warrior, right? Like, the Thunder were going to win that series, and there's no way Kevin Durant is leaving after they make it that far in the playoffs. So that's probably the biggest frustration for me, and I would say that it would definitely help. I don't know that he would need that to really... Yeah, actually, yeah, I would say that he would need to lead his own team, quote-unquote, to a championship, be considered an all-time great. Apparently he's going to retire in 5 years, so doesn't matter. Noah says, any chance Michael Porter Jr. falls to 14? Who has the Nuggets? You a Nuggets fan? You want him to fall? I would say yeah. I don't know how likely it is, but him specifically with the injury stuff and lack of experience in college, I would say there's a chance. Not a very high chance, but I would say there's a chance. I will say if that happened and a team was pretty high on him and it got to like the 10th pick, they would probably just trade up as opposed to letting him fall all the way to 14. Doctor, am I really? I know the last couple of days have been nuts. I haven't watched the counter this whole time. I just have this up. I think yesterday we gained like 400 something and another like 300 something today, which is nuts. James, I'm a Nets fan, bud. Nets fan. Brooklyn Nets. Not Zay says I run a draft channel. Bulls want him bad. Grizzlies want him bad. And Sacramento wants him bad. Who are you talking about? Oh, MPJ? Interesting. Is anybody else in here either have a YouTube channel or for the NBA or thinking about it? I'm curious. I'm not going to shout you out or anything because I haven't watched any of your content, so I wouldn't put my stamp on content that I haven't watched, but I'm curious. I might check it out. I might check out Natze. Again, I wouldn't not shout you out just because I'm not going to do it. I just would want to watch the content, and if it's good, you know, I might message you or something. Patrick says he's thinking about it. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, Money Max says, I'm thinking about making a channel. I need the equipment. Jan, did you really think you said? No, you didn't. Yeah, the interesting thing with the whole YouTube channel stuff is what made me want to do it is the realization that there's no difference between myself, between any of you guys, and Korzemba or B-Souls or any of these guys you might watch. As people, there's nothing different, right? And that realization was big for me because I realized I could do this just as well as anybody else as long as I put in the time and the effort to make good content, and as long as I get, you know, a break like I did with the Ben Simmons video. There's no difference between myself and anybody else, except for the fact that they've been doing it for longer than I have, so they've developed those skills of editing and researching and making good content. But apart from that, there's nothing different about myself and you guys, or you guys and any of these other NBA YouTubers or YouTubers in general. And that's the craziest thing about the platform is we're all very much amateurs at what we do, but we get to do it in our own way and in a very professional way for the most part. Let me see. Michael says, are the Celtics going to sign IT4? Isaiah Thomas. I think it's a possibility. I do. I don't think it's a high chance, but I think, again, I don't put anything past Danny Ainge anymore. I really don't. I think if someone can get Isaiah Thomas and he can be healthy and he can be a sixth man at $6 or $8 million a year, I think that's a good deal. All right, guys, let's do 10 more minutes. I plan on go 6 to 7. We'll do 10 more minutes. James Thompson says, do you think Jared Allen will be a top 5 center in a few years? It's not just Nets fan bias. I really like Jared Allen. Top 5 center is, you know, pretty tough to, you know, calculate and look towards. But I really like him. I'm very high on Jared Allen in terms of his athleticism, his ability to move his feet, and obviously rebounding and shot blocking as well. I think it's a really good thing that he fell to them. Yeah, Money. The editing thing, it's just something you learn, bud. Like, when I started, I was editing, I mean, this is like a year ago. I was editing videos on an iPad and iMovie, you know, and now I'm learning Premiere, which is why the videos have looked a little bit different lately because I'm learning a new program. It's just skills that you learn, man. Like, I had very limited graphic design or video editing experience, and you just learn on the job. You find tutorials, you use the internet, you use people you know, and it's just a skill that you build. It's not something that you inherently just have. Brian Vo says, will Kyle Kuzma eventually be better than Chris Middleton? I like Kyle Kuzma. I also really like Chris Middleton. But I think we need to slow it down a little bit on the Kyle Kuzma as a future all-star thing. I've seen that a lot in the comments, and I need to see more, and people need to understand that it's not uncommon for late first round or early first round players as rookies to have good rookie seasons on bad teams. Now, obviously, Kuzma had an outstanding rookie season relative to where he was drafted in the draft order, but I think we need to pump the brakes a little bit because I don't know if I talked about this in the last stream or on a Twitch stream, but you know, Jordan Clarkson in his first and second year averaged like 13 a game for the Lakers, and now we see where he is. So just pump the brakes a little bit, I would say. Yeah, Ben. I mean, whatever you want to do, bud. Like, whatever you enjoy, right? Like, if the video editing stuff isn't for you, you know, just do whatever you're passionate about and try and build an audience. Yeah, John, that's a good point. Said also keep in mind Kuzma's age when comparing him to his draft class. Yeah, and it's a good point for sure. Mounta says, are you confident that the Nets will continue to be better and become a playoff team in the next 5 years? I believe in Kenny Atkinson and I believe in Sean Marks, and it's going to be tough because of how the situation was before each of them got there. But I think they're absolutely going in the right direction, and I think they're going about it the right way in terms of using salary cap as an asset to get D'Angelo Russell, to get the Raptors pick that they got for DeMar Carroll, because the Nets get to pick in the first round this year, even though they don't have their own first round pick. So they've gone about it the right way. It's going to take some more moves other than just what they have, but I think they've done better than anyone really could have expected with the way the situation was when they got there. I can remember reading articles saying that Kenny Atkinson said he had so many coaching peers that told him to stay away from Brooklyn and he'd be crazy to take the job. But I think they've done a very good job. Also, Brooklyn's like my favorite team to try and rebuild in 2K and like my GM, because it's so difficult because there's like no picks. All right, a few more questions. Yeah, a dude was asking about the like the Timberwolves and what their situation is, and I don't really know what the expectation was. Obviously, for them to almost not make the playoffs after trading for Jimmy Butler would have been pretty disastrous, but they're not a top tier team in the West, and they're spending a lot of money. Andrew Wiggins is going to be on a max deal. Jimmy Butler's expensive. Cat is eventually going to be a max guy. I don't really know what they were trying to accomplish by trying to speed things up, as well as giving Andrew Wiggins a max deal. So they're a little bit dysfunctional even for a team that did make the playoffs. Like if you're comparing where the Nuggets are compared to where the Timberwolves are, obviously they had a play-in game for the playoffs. I'd say the Nuggets are in a better place in terms of a sustainable future than the Timberwolves are. Jan, I would be all about the Swamp Dragons rebrand. I'm pretty sure we read the same article about this however long ago, but yeah, I think that would be cool. Matthew said, do you ever do all-time fantasy drafts in 2K? I did one yesterday. I'm running through one right now where, and I do this a lot just because in 2K a lot of times it's so easy to rebuild teams. You just tank, get really good players, sign a couple guys in free agency, and you're in there. So what I started doing is I have the Nets who have no picks, right? It still keeps your draft picks. And I had an all-time fantasy draft, and when it was my pick, I sorted and picked the worst player on the board. So I had a full team of like 60-something overalls, and everybody else has like all-time great players, and I've got like no picks. And that's my challenge, is to try and win a championship in however many years. So yeah, sometimes I do. Doctor says this will be the last question of the night, fellas. He said, how often can we expect these live streams? I'm not 100% sure about these. I do enjoy doing them, and I appreciate the interaction. And I don't really want to put it on a schedule because I don't want to miss one and you guys wonder what's going on. I'd like to do it at least, maybe like twice a month. I think weekly might be a little bit too much. I will say that my Twitch name is on the screen. I'm planning on tomorrow evening, after I edit tomorrow's video and I get it out, so pretty much within an hour of tomorrow's video getting out, I'm planning on doing a pretty long Twitch stream playing some Fortnite tomorrow. So if you guys have more questions that maybe I didn't get to tonight, I'd love to see you guys over there on Twitch tomorrow evening. That is going to be the plan. So I appreciate all you guys coming out. Again, it was really fun. I plan on doing more of these in the future. And again, I just thank you guys for coming out. All the questions I thought were really good. Thank you guys. So whether it's this morning for you guys or whether it's this evening or the middle of the night, you guys have a good evening, good morning, good night, and I'll see y'all next time. Appreciate it, guys.